Hello everyone and welcome to the High Tech U Twitch channel. My name is Andrew and I am so excited to be back here for another amazing Twitch stream. If you're just dropping in, welcome. You have dropped in for an amazing stream, which you probably found out through one of our awesome social media channels over on Twitch or Instagram or one of those other many places that we throw stuff up. And we are here today with Bart Farrell, Dynamizer at DoK Community for our amazing Skill Studio Collaborative, the simple way to make $190K per year. So I'm going to pull up our spectacular guest in just a second. There we go. How is it going, Bart? Oh, hold on. I'm going to unmute.
I'm unmuted now. Thank you. That was an amazing introduction. Normally, I'm the most energetic person in the room, but you absolutely crushed me. So I don't know how I'm going to be able to match that. Anyway, very nice to be here.
I was going to say, if anybody is going to match me, but I have to say the same thing. I often find a lot of people can't keep up that energy. So I am so excited for kind of your engagement, your talk. So like sharing about your experience in DoK Community and what a site reliability engineer does. I think it's going to be a spectacular stream. So thank you so much for being here.
Likewise. I'm really looking forward to it. I got to say right now, because everybody who's here is located in British Columbia.
Yes.
Correct?
Yeah. British Columbia,
right.
Canada.
Yeah. So what time is it there right now?
So it is 11:30 Pacific time right now in the morning.
Okay. All right, cool. So yeah, I'm in Spain. So I'm about 9 hours ahead of you. It's 8:30 here. I have to say, today's been a very long day. I've been doing a lot of stuff, but this is by far the coolest thing that I'm going to do today. Probably the coolest thing I'm going to do this week. Very excited to be here, and so excited that I brought my Tim Hortons cup.
Hey.
Very proud to say that I am 25% Canadian. My grandma is from a small town in Manitoba, and I've been to Canada many times, including British Columbia. You live in a beautiful country. I, however, am from the United States. I'm going to tell you my story a little quickly here. If there are any questions as we're going on, please feel free to put them in the chat. I'll be asking you some questions as well too, to see where you're at. I want this to be as interactive as possible. If you've got doubts, if you want to double check something, if something doesn't make 100% sense, I'll try to leave some links in the chat as well too, just so this can be as interactive as possible. All right. So that being said, I am going to share my screen now. So do you see my screen?
Ooh, give me 1 second, and I'm going to pull you over there.
Now. Yeah, we do now.
There we go, and I'm going to move you over so it's just you on the screen. Where are you hiding? There we go. Awesome. There we go. Now we got you.
Good stuff. Thanks, man. All right, so this is the title of the talk, but obviously there are a lot of different things that we're going to be looking at here. All right, I personally have to say myself as well too. Before we get started, I am not a site reliability engineer. I have the privilege to work with many people who are, and also have different technical roles. What this is more about is opening all your eyes to all the possibilities that are out there in the tech world, which is really, really good that you're in this group already. You're already a step ahead. It's never too early to get going with these things, and these are the things we're going to be talking about. All right. There are many possibilities in the tech world. What's very, very true, what somebody in our community told me once is that, in the past, there were tech companies. Nowadays, every company is a tech company. Coca-Cola is a tech company. Nike and Adidas are tech companies. Tim Hortons is a tech company, all right? Every single company in the world is trying to leverage technologies in some ways to help them get ahead. And how do they do that? With people who have the skills and know how to use these technologies to make those things happen. And one of the reasons why these salaries are so high for some of these positions is because companies can simply not find the profiles. All right. I get to do interviews with companies that raise funding rounds of $160 million, all right, which means they have plenty of money, but they literally cannot find the people because there just aren't enough people with those skills, right? So we're gonna look into this, but the thing is, I'm not saying that there's only one direction that you should be thinking about. All right, there are lots of different things that you can be exploring in the tech world. A lot of it is just some basic habits and practices that you can have in your tool belt, if you want to call it that way, to be able to be better equipped to navigate all the different things that are happening in technology. And if one thing is true about technology as well is that it's constantly changing. So you have to expect that how things are being done right now isn't exactly how they're going to be done in the future. I'm not going to ask Andrew his age, right? But I'm 35 years old. So, I got my first mobile cell phone when I was, I think 15. But I imagine many people in this meeting probably got their first cell phone much earlier. And my first cell phone was black and white and was kind of like a brick, and you could only play one game on it, and you definitely couldn't take pictures. So like I said, the evolution of this stuff is definitely something we need to keep in mind as well, right? Good. So a little bit, just want to see though, like, what are the things that you're working on? Can we just do like a quick survey about like the technologies that you're looking at, whether it's programming languages? I don't care. For example, today I was looking at, one of the technologies that we use obviously very frequently in our community is Kubernetes. So that's something we're talking about a lot. But I'm just curious, what are the technologies that you're interacting with at the moment, or things that have caught your attention? If you can just put your comments in the chat, so we can keep that in mind. If you feel like sharing that, if you don't, that's all right too. But I'm just kind of curious to see where you're at and the stuff that you're working on. All right, because it's as like I said, it's never too early to be there. There's nothing that's really too complex out there. All right. Nowadays, also, we have so many more resources than were in the past to be able to access these technologies in terms of tutorials, in terms of communities. We're definitely going to be talking about communities because that's my sort of angle on all this. But what I want to say there is that it's just I'm really excited to be in with a group of young people that are taking this stuff seriously, that are not brushing off the opportunity to get involved with this stuff at an early age. All right. So just keep that in mind. Let's keep going. All right. So a little bit of information about me. As I said, my name is Bart Farrell. I'm originally from the United States, but I've been living in Spain. All right. So I live in the north of Spain in an area that's called the Basque Country. That's basically at the northern part of Spain, also close to the border with France. And I've been living here for the last 10 years. I met my partner in Egypt 11 years ago. We were both studying Arabic there. And that's once again, I have to say is that I do not have a technical background. I got involved in tech 6 years ago, working for a British software development company that had a development center in the city where I live. And as a result of working in things related to talent management, event organization, community building, before COVID, when we had physical meetups and things like that, is something that I got very involved in, as well as audiovisual production, making videos and stuff like that. All right. So here on the left, you can see some things of me participating in events. And then on the right, those two pictures, those are pictures from the community that I'm working in right now, all right, which is the DoK, the Data on Kubernetes community, all right. As you can see as well in these pictures, here's this very silly picture of me doing a promo video with a very traditional Basque horn, all right, that is a goat horn. And the picture below actually as well is that we make rap videos for all of our meetups as well too. All right, so we try to do things differently. What I want to say about that as well too, and something that I always ask guests in our meetups is, tell me about things that you like to do in your free time, your passions, your interests, your hobbies. And you can generally find a way to find overlaps, right, between that and what you're doing technologically speaking, right? It could be that, I like to play basketball, so I'm going to make an application in my spare time to monitor the stats of my favorite professional team. Or I really like food, so I'm going to create a voting system to review the best restaurants, whatever, all right? But really, really important, as soon as you possibly can, find some way to take what you like to do and mix it with what you're doing technologically speaking, just because it's a way to make it more fun. Or just start some kind of small project, right? One of the things about people that make a lot of money in tech is they're generally people that have a lot of projects, right? Most developers don't just work in a company. They also have side projects at home, or things they're doing with their friends, or what we call pet projects, or things like that. It is never too early to get started with that. And I've much made an effort to incorporate the things that I like to do with making music and making videos and things like that into the tech communities that I've been working with, right? So that, like I said, that's just a little bit of background information about me. Much more importantly though, all right, can we get to know you a little bit better? I don't know if I can see the chat right now, but I'm just curious, like, we can do a quick survey, all right? If I'm 35, how old is everybody here? Just curious. Andrew, how old are you? If you dare to say.
On the stream. Yeah, so I'm gonna pull myself over here. Actually, I'll just leave myself up. Where are we hiding? Host and guest one. There we go. And then I'm gonna move you over there. There we go. Now we're back. Yeah, I'm 32. Yeah, and I know some of the folks that are watching the stream right now. We've got some of our staff members who are sort of in their mid-20s, but most of our members and the viewers that are watching the stream right now, if they don't mind me talking for them, are primarily in the like 16 to 18 range. So
okay.
Yeah.
That's great. The thing is, and like I said, that's fantastic. And just the very fact that you're here right now is a really, really good sign that you're very much well on the right track, right? Like, is just the more you get out there, and also you realize as well too is that we're talking about global things here, right? Like I'm in Spain, you're in Canada. Earlier, I was talking with someone who's in Seattle. Before that, I was talking to people that were in India. Earlier this morning, was talking to someone who's in Greece. Technology is an international language, right? And what I should say technologies, right? It doesn't matter that it's JavaScript, that's C++, or that it's C#, or that it's Go, or that you're using Amazon, or that you're using Microsoft, or using IBM. You're automatically connected to people all over the world through this, right? So it's a really, really cool thing. And so you're already very well positioned if you're here. Now, that being said, you have tons of resources. You are what people call, digital natives, that you've grown up with technology in a very, very close way. So things like Twitch, things like YouTube, things like live streams, things like podcasts, like all that kind of stuff are not things that are going to sound very foreign to you. The trick is here is to just be in contact with this stuff, right? And don't just consider it to be an academic thing necessarily, but something that if you have fun doing it, it's not going to feel like work, right? It's not going to feel like other school subjects that might seem like, oh, I really don't feel interested in this. Find a way to connect your passions. Believe me, if I can do it, you definitely can too. And particularly as a non-technical person in a very technical world, it's something that has been a bit of a challenge at times, but luckily, if you have a positive attitude and a beginner's mind and being willing to learn and to listen, as well as to share, you're going to be totally fine. Right. So let's continue. So what do I do? All right. This is a very, very good question. And it's sometimes difficult to explain. So as I said, I've been working in tech for the last 6 years, related to human resources. And so that's why I also know about hiring and the difficulties that companies have, because I've been on that side of talent management and attraction and loyalty programs and things of that nature. But last year I got the opportunity to start working in the Data on Kubernetes community. I have to get some t-shirts sent out to British Columbia. But yeah, so I started working in this community last year. It was a community that was started because this technology that's called Kubernetes, you might know, you might not know, and don't worry if you don't know, it's okay. There's tons of resources out there. You can go to Google and find, or I can send some links to Andrew later on. Kubernetes is a technology that, like many technologies, started out as an internal technology in Google. All right, it started in around 2014. Actually, it was in 2014 in June of 2014 is when they started using this technology internally. And at that point, it wasn't called Kubernetes. Right, at that point, it was called Borg. All right, I don't know if anybody here is old enough to have watched a lot of Star Trek, but it's kind of a funny name.
I love that. I had no idea that started out as Borg. That's hilarious.
Yes, it is funny. So yeah, so it was called Borg, internally being used in Google, basically for the orchestration and scheduling and deployment of applications. It was a technology that made that simpler. So Google designed this technology specifically thinking about a problem that they had internally as a company. There are lots of other tools that are out there that also kind of started in that way. All right. Slack, you may have heard of Slack, which is like a chat system, was started by a design company that wanted to have their own internal chat for their company. And now it's used by thousands and thousands of companies all over the world, right? You might be more familiar with Discord because it's a little bit more, I would say, younger people friendly, but similar to that, all right? So like I said, a lot of times you generally, when technologies in general, we'll talk about this later on, but you always want to be thinking about problems, right? Like we have an expression in the United States, like if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. I'm sure you're probably familiar with that too. So like if I always think of it this way, like if someone isn't suffering from something, if it's not causing enough of a problem that someone's going to say, you know what, I would pay for somebody to help me with this, it's probably not really likely to gain traction. Sometimes companies or folks out there will have the tendency to think like, I have this amazing idea for this amazing technology, but I always ask the question, like, what problem is that going to solve, right? Like, is that going to help people have more time? That's frequently what a lot of stuff is with technologies, that things can be done faster so that people then can focus their time on other things. Does it make my life easier? Does it make it simpler? Always want to be keeping these things in mind. So like I said, what Kubernetes permits companies to do is that it makes it easier for companies that are working with containers, right, that have their applications and things that are called containers, to be driven, right? And which is why the word Kubernetes comes from Greek, right? And it means helmsman, right? Like the person who's like driving a ship, right? So that's kind of the idea there. Like Kubernetes is helping the containers, which have the applications, get to the places where they need to be. So further from that, because Kubernetes was designed internally inside Google, when it was initially designed, the question about data wasn't really had there, right? It wasn't really present. The idea there was that they were talking about things that were ephemeral, all right, meaning like existing in a representative way. That like, okay, like this is the idea of what's going on here, but not actually having the data put inside there, right? So having the data outside. However, as time has gone on, Kubernetes has become extremely popular for lots and lots of companies all over the world, right? And that means many, many different things. It means that because there are communities that really appreciate it and are working on it, right? So, and to explain that as well, Kubernetes, after several years, was released by Google and was turned into an open source project, right? So open source projects are projects where people from all over the world in a transparent way can see the inside and outside of some software and can contribute on it, right? To make comments or recommendations or improvements, right? So that they get to be a part of it too. Very often, companies will have an open source version of a particular product and then also a closed source version. You'll also find things that are called open core. There are different ways around that, but it's sort of a philosophical approach to be working with one kind or another. There are some companies that, for reasons of cybersecurity or privacy or things like that, will not work with open source projects because it doesn't necessarily meet their protocols or standards. But it is a trend that's been growing quite a lot over the last several decades. So Kubernetes then became an open source project, and because more and more people getting into it, anyway, these questions about data and storage and where does your data go and where is it being kept, and does it need to be kept outside of Kubernetes, or could it be kept inside of Kubernetes given the right circumstances or the right technologies? Those questions started to be asked more and more. So as a result, a company that's based in the United States, but also has the reason why I'm here is because a wonderful person who works in that company introduced me to Andrew, and this company specializes in data storage, right? So how data is managed inside Kubernetes using a technology that's called OpenEBS, right? You don't need to worry about that. But basically, just like I said, it's a storage solution so that data can be kept all in the same space, right? Also, for the sake of convenience, more and more companies, but more and more users, right? More and more end users, practitioners prefer to have everything all in the same ecosystem. So by having everything all in the same place, it makes it simpler. There's also then the business or talent side of this, all right? If companies want good developers, good technological people to work for them, they need to be working with the best technologies, because people that are passionate and motivated by cool technologies don't want to work with technologies from the 1990s or early 2000s, right? They want to work with the things that are the most modern, right? So there's another additional reason as to why this is being adopted. When I talk about Kubernetes becoming an open source project, this is where we get into the part of the Cloud Native Computing Foundation, right? The Cloud Native Computing Foundation was started 6 years ago with the intention of creating a space where open source projects could grow in 3 different stages, right? First, there's what are called sandbox projects. You know, imagine that you're a kid like playing around in a sandbox. But these are still very serious pieces of software that are open source. So that means that people from all over the world are working on different elements of them. And Kubernetes is not the only project that's inside the CNCF, right? There are many, 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 many other projects. And so there are different phases. Like I said, you have a sandbox project that then goes to be an incubated project and then a graduated project. Kubernetes is now a graduated project. But like I said, and there are hundreds of thousands of people who are working on this, just so you understand the scope. You can also understand how difficult it is if you have someone who's in China, someone who's in India, someone who's in Australia, and someone who's in Canada, and they want to have a meeting. Things get pretty complicated. Someone's got to go to bed really late or wake up really early. But it's really exciting because it connects you to so many different people. So that's why I really, really strongly suggest, no matter what your age, there are people that are teenagers that are participating in these projects, right? That are actively contributing, that are doing internships, that are doing menteeships. It's an extremely welcoming community. I have to insist on that. And I really say that because as a non-technical person, I am able to participate fully inside the CNCF ecosystem. No one is going to judge you because of your age or because of your technical skill level. If you say, hey, my name is so-and-so, and I'm really interested in working on JavaScript, or I really like back-end development, or I'm really interested in artificial intelligence, someone out there will tell you, hey, you should go talk to so-and-so, and they will help you get plugged into a project. When I say plugged into a project, the minimum requirement in terms of these kinds of projects is to go to a 1 hour meeting once a week, right? Every Friday at 5 o'clock in Spain time, I go to a meeting that's about contributor experience, right? About how the experience is for folks that are participating in, particularly in Kubernetes, right? But there are other contributor experience groups for other projects and other technologies. And we talk about how we can tell the stories of the people who are participating, right? So we make videos or we write blog posts or stuff like that. So like I said, it's telling technical stories, but you don't necessarily have to be a technical person. Most of the people that are in the group, they are quite technical, but they're very supportive of the ideas that I put out there and things like that. So like I said, we started the Data on Kubernetes community was started last year in June, and it basically consists of regular meetups that we do every week. I actually had a meetup today. And I had one yesterday, and I have one tomorrow, and I have two on Friday. So we started out just by doing one meetup per week, but the demand was so strong that we started to add more. And we also started to add meetups in other languages. I speak Spanish. I've been in Spain for 10 years. I have a friend who's in Brazil. He speaks Portuguese. We're having our first meetup in Hindi on Friday. We have planned to do a meetup in Russian. We're looking at other languages as well, because we want to be as inclusive as possible, right? We don't want anybody to think like, oh, I can't participate if I don't speak English perfectly, right? So that's what our community is about. Is that we have weekly meetups with different people that can have at different levels. We've had 20-year-olds, we've had people that are 50, we've had people that have patents, we've had people that write books, we have people that are relative beginners. It really is a mixture. And the idea is we want to have stuff for everybody, right? Not just exclusively for people that have been working in the IT world for 15, 20 years. No, we want to be as accepting and as open as possible so that everyone can have a space. So like I said, so we do that. We also create our own resources for training materials, things of that nature, to make the process easier for folks who want to get into that world. And then we also incorporate other things, like I said, in terms of art, music, all that kind of stuff, because those are ways that, in my opinion, it makes it easier to have more conversations about these technologies, gives you a different set of eyes, we can say, to look at how these things are working, and it just makes it more fun, right?
So what do you do in those? Sorry, Bart. What do you do in those meetups? Like, what does that actually look like if a teenager or like a member of our community wanted to drop in?
For sure. First of all of them are on YouTube, so like they're pretty easy to watch. But basically, that's a good question. Is that there are different kinds of formats. Like for example, today I was with the CNCF ecosystem technical advocate, Katie Gamanji, who's absolutely incredible, extremely high technical level. But the meetup that we had today was just a conversation. So just the two of us talking. Like sometimes we don't even prepare a script. It will just be like, okay, we're going to talk about these things and let's just see what happens from there. So it's very natural. Other times we'll kind of prearrange the questions, but then we also take questions from the audience. And I would say this, and I will say it again and again till I die. There's no such thing as a stupid question. There are only stupid silences, right? Anybody who has a question, no one is going to be told, like, why would you ask that? I mean, of course, if someone asks a question in a really rude way, then, we'd still try to respond in a nice way. But basically the idea about the meetups is to get topics out there. So then people that have questions or have doubts can feel free to ask them there. If some folks sometimes, and the thing is, they don't have to ask them out loud. They can just write them in the chat anonymously or things like that. And then we also have our Slack group. So if people want to continue the conversation there, because the meetups are generally 1 hour long, and sometimes we could easily spend 3 hours talking, but we want to respect people's time and, so the meetups can either be like that, or it can be more like a technical demo where someone will come in and say, this is the project that I've been working on. I'm going to show you the code. I'm going to show you how we did it. I'm going to show you the problems that we encountered. It's always fun to hear about the problems, right? Because if anybody ever tells you like, oh, this was super easy, it's probably not true, right? Like most things it requires, some editing, some proofreading, getting feedback from different people. But basically that's it, is that the meetups generally have a sort of central focus. That's the speaker and their level of expertise. We really try something as well that's important for our community, is that we talk about technologies and not just saying like our product is the best in the world. Of course, everybody wants to speak well about their company. But we feel that it's important to kind of tone that down and focus just more on like, this is how you solve these problems. Like, and this is how I did it. Of course, at the end of the day, we all have jobs and we all work in different places, and we always, want our companies to look good and also doing, we want ourselves to look good too. But we really try to make it as vendor neutral as possible, and mostly just about knowledge sharing. Our community is, and this is a really good question from Andrew, our community is by no means the only one that does that, right? There are lots and lots of communities out there, right? what happens though, a lot of times is that I would say a lot of tech companies have their own communities now just for their company, right? So to share information about, hey, we're putting up this new release or an update, an updated version of our software. Can you please take a look and let us know what you think? Very often as well, they'll like give you something in return, whether it's, a t-shirt or a water bottle or a chance to win a trip to somewhere. It's to give people incentives to participate in those kinds of things. But like I said, our community is a little bit different because in the sense that we have different companies participating all the time. All right. So like this week we have 5 meetups and nobody works in the same company and everyone is pretty much in a different country, except for we have 2 speakers on Friday that are both in India. So yeah, but it really is true that most of the tech companies that you look at out there, Microsoft has meetups, IBM has meetups, Red Hat has meetups, like all these, there's a big focus now in the tech world about community, because it's like, if you make people enthusiastic about something, they're going to give you their time, their knowledge, their feedback. What's really valuable for companies is for people to find their problems, right? You may have heard of a bug bounty, maybe it might sound familiar, or a bug bash. But it's like, all right, we've got this web page or a piece of software or something like that. I'm going to, if you find problems, defects, I will pay you. All right. Maybe it could be in pizza or it could be in, gift certificate or stuff like that. But it's basically really valuing those contributions and insights of like, hey, when I clicked here, it didn't work. So in a bug bounty or a bug bash, a lot of times, it's kind of like user testing. You just go in and you click on everything and you try to find mistakes. But that stuff's really, really valuable for companies. So that's, like I said, there's another reason why communities are so important. Any other questions about that, Andrew, before I move on?
I've got like multiple things to unmute. No, that's super friendly. So, but you said they can catch that on the YouTube channel for is it for DoK Community, for CNCF? Like, where can they find that if they're interested?
Good question. I'm going to get the link right here.
Awesome. And I'll throw it on Twitch as well when you do that.
Yeah, good. Okay, where... Yeah, as you can see, I am 35 years old. My ability to move around all this stuff is relatively limited. So yeah, you got everything on there. Awesome. I gotta say though, is that like some of the stuff on there that like might seem a little bit advanced. The introductory video, for example, where you can hear my wonderful voice narrating it, sort of just gives sort of a basic rundown of things we've been talking about. But what I want to say there is that there's a lot of stuff. And also as well too, is that if any of you check that out and you tell Andrew like, hey, I didn't really get it or things like that, I would be more than happy but for example as well too, like we have a couple like really nice videos on there that are animated that I can send those links specifically to you as well, Andrew. Awesome. About one where it's one of our speakers compared data as like a metaphor as an anchor. And another person talked about, like data storage, comparing it to the idea of a hotel. I think those things are really, for me, once again, as a non-technical person, it really brings those concepts to life and makes it much easier to understand. We also have a wonderful visual learning coordinator in our community who makes really, really good drawings of different concepts. And so those things really, really bring us to life. And actually in the event we're doing next week on Monday, we're going to be releasing our first coloring book. So I will also send that over to you as well too. So anyway, because like these ways, like I said, it makes it more interactive and more tangible and just more accessible. So yeah, but like I said, all of our stuff for YouTube is on there. And our promo videos and the rep videos and things like that. And so anyway, there are plenty of things there. But like I said, if that for whatever, the thing is here, there is no wrong way to try, and don't feel upset or bothered if it doesn't make sense the first time, right? Like a lot of these concepts, and I have to say this, well, we'll get to this later, but like I listen to tech podcasts every day, all right? It's also kind of has to do something with my job, and there's a lot of stuff in there that I don't understand, right? But that's okay. I look at all this is in the same way of like learning a language. I learned Spanish when I moved to Spain, right? I didn't know Spanish when I came here. I studied Latin for 4 years in high school. And so I learned Spanish through basically immersion, listening, reading, watching TV, stuff like that. And I think technology is kind of the same thing. Like you've got to just like put yourself into it, read books. It's not that everyone's going to have one style, all right? But it's generally have contact with it, right? Like that's why, watch videos, listen to things that you don't understand, but then also ask questions. Like I'll tell you this, People that are experts like it when people ask them questions because it shows them that they are experts and they get to prove that, right? So most people that are really, really good, but also maybe, you don't need to look for, like a Bill Gates person, to use that as an example, or in the Kubernetes world, it would probably Kelsey Hightower is probably like the most superstar personality when it comes to Kubernetes. But lots of other folks that are out there, they will be happy and delighted to answer your questions. All right. So please do not feel afraid if you feel like, oh, this is completely over my head, over my level. It's healthy to be in contact with things that you don't understand because it expands your mind and makes you look at things in a different way. All right. And also just remember, you've got to be patient and be kind to yourselves. And also know that the way that things are being done now will evolve. That's part of learning technology. But that doesn't mean that it's a bad thing to learn C or C++ or .NET or this or that just because you switch to another programming language in the future. Like that's not a big deal, right? So don't worry about that either. Cool. I'm going to move on to the next slide. So who do I work with? All right. So like I said, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself, I guess, in terms of what I've been covering. So people that I work with, all right, like I said, there are SREs. So site reliability engineers, as it sounds, are engineers who monitor the reliability of a website. All right. So but let's think about it this way. All right. Amazon, thousands, millions of people visiting this place all the time. So think about websites that receive a lot of traffic, right? If websites receive a lot of traffic, it means that they can have issues with the site crashing, with things going slow. And then in order to make sure that you have the right infrastructure so that those problems don't happen, that can end up being very expensive. For example, think about days like Black Friday, right? When Black Friday happens, and also because I previously worked in a software development company that specialized in e-commerce, it was crazy. I mean, like you had to have lots and lots of things, extra infrastructure provisioned, anticipating how many people are going to be coming. So site reliability engineers, a lot of what they do is they have to have what's a common term that's used a lot, observability, right? Being able to know what's going on. Observability, also monitoring. There are lots of different tools for monitoring, but one of the most common ones that we encounter is called Grafana. And it basically shows you, like my traffic. So I can see like, all right, so there was a peak at this time or there wasn't. So based on that, how can things be adjusted in a scalable way, right? To give the right amount of infrastructure that needs to be provided at any given time, right? So these are the people that I work with. Like I said, there are a lot of SREs. There are also people that are, that have different profiles. Other profiles that you'll hear about are DevOps, all right? DevOps is because in the past, ops was like IT operations, basically referring to infrastructure, right? Like cloud architecture and things of that nature. And so a lot of what you'll hear about as well too, and so why the mixing and blending of concepts is the idea of breaking down silos, okay? So silos meaning like the front-end developers only talk to the front-end developers, the back-end developers, and that everyone's kind of in their own little box. But you don't want that, all right? You want more fluid communication and also sharing best practices. So what DevOps does is takes the practices that are used frequently in software development and applies them to the more, we could say, to what was previously IT ops, or like I said, just more traditional sort of systems administrators, right? Like those kind of profiles. So it's kind of blending these kind of things. Then from there, you also hear about data ops. Then from there, you'll hear about DevSecOps, right? Referring to getting security involved in there, because cybersecurity is always a really important thing. There's a famous saying that there are two types of companies: the ones who know they've been attacked, and the ones who don't. All right. So like I said, these are there's the whole different sorts of ways of looking at things, philosophies, if you want to call it that, inside the tech ecosystem or tech space. It's really up to a person to decide which one is most comfortable for them, right? There really is no one, only way to do it is this way, right? Like you're going to find a lot of different stuff out there, and it's just a question of trial and error, to see what's most comfortable for you and what works best for you, all right? So like I said, we work with SREs. We also work with DBAs, right? Database administrators, since we're talking about data on Kubernetes. There could also be regular, like even front-end developers, probably not so much, right? Because that very often will relate to things more like design and things of that, things more in that sort of world. Whereas ours, like I said, would be more probably on the back end side. But you do, like I said, you do find a little bit of everything, right? And so anyway, so what problems are they solving? Like I was saying earlier, you have an e-commerce, you have a website that's receiving a lot of traffic. You have an important sports game, that's going to be, streamed or something like that. Netflix is one of the classic examples. All right. you have all these different sorts of needs, but basically it's like, I have a lot of traffic coming in. I have a lot of information that I'm going to be handling. Where is all that going? Do I know where things are? And that's why previously in the past, there wasn't maybe such a clear idea where different things were. And and also ownership, right? About who's actually in charge of what, who has access to each individual thing, who has control of this kind of stuff. Those things are really important to know as well. Once again, we're talking about observability. So like I said, these are the kind of problems that they're tackling. Is how can we have proper infrastructure, proper storage? How can we make sure that our data is of good quality, that it's reliable? We can talk about data backups, all right, about replicas. I was actually in a data center this morning. If you've never been to a data center, you should go. It's pretty cool because you get to see all the hardware, and it's really hot. I have to say that it's really, really hot. They generate a lot of heat. That's also another thing to keep in mind too, is the environmental impact of all this stuff is something to be kept in mind, because it's the energy consumption that's necessary, not just to operate a data center, but to keep it cool. All right, all the air conditioning, refrigeration, stuff like that you have to have. Pretty expensive electricity bills there. So, like I said, there are many different elements and aspects to this world of data on Kubernetes. But generally speaking, like I said, problems that they're solving. We're talking about reliability, resilience. Something else that you may have heard of or you may not have heard of is something that's called chaos engineering, it sounds pretty cool, and it is pretty cool. Chaos engineering is essentially like testing to see what happens if there's a disaster. There's also disaster recovery and things like that too. But basically, like, companies in a similar way as to cybersecurity will attack their own infrastructure, or just start in a test environment, right? We'll start turning things off to see, like, if this fails, what happens here, so that I know that if this happens, and I'm prepared with an action plan, right? Those things are really important. Netflix is one of the famous ones for that, because I think they had a disaster on Christmas Eve. I forget. I think it was about 10 years ago. And I think there were horrible storms somewhere. So, like, all these people were at home with their in-laws, and all of a sudden Netflix didn't work because it got saturated with traffic, or I don't know what. And so thinking about all the consequences of, you have all these angry people that don't want to have to talk to their in-laws, and they really just want to watch a movie, and now they can't do it. So Netflix then became a sort of pioneer in this whole world of chaos engineering. And obviously since then, many other companies have gotten involved in that. But these are, like I said, this is by no means the only things that we talk about, right? There are tons of different things that get brought up. But these are, like I said, it gives you an overview of the kind of problems that these folks are solving. Like I said, is how can I have proper, reliable, robust, resilient infrastructure, data management, visibility, observability over all the things that are going on in my ecosystem, so that I can make proper decisions, right? At the end of the day, what this is about is getting better information to make better decisions that will provide business value. That's another thing that's really, really important here. Everything should always have some kind of a connection to something that's providing business value. Something that you will learn, all right, as well too, in your journey as technologists, if you want to call it that, is that there's frequently battles or disagreements or fights between the business side and the tech side, all right? Everyone can always be a little bit more reasonable. Tech people could learn some business stuff. Business people could learn more tech stuff. A lot of times tech people have the tendency to, and it's normal, to be very passionate about the technologies that are being used. The business person will say, can we just get the cheapest option or the one that works the best for our customers, right? If the final customer doesn't care, maybe it's not so important. I'm just saying that these are things that can happen, right? In order for a technological company to be successful, there need to be people out there who are willing to pay for it. So they have to be kept in mind as well, which is why things like user experience are really, really important. Yeah, on the other side, in the tech world, something that's becoming bigger now as a buzzword that you may have heard of is called developer experience, right? What's it like for the person who's using this technology, all right? What are, some of the, for example, companies that are famous for user experience would be Apple, all right? The iPhones are really easy to use, very simple, elegant, like all that kind of stuff. So in the same way that you can have a physical experience as a user, or in a digital experience as well, if we're talking about a phone or a computer, if we're thinking about software programs, if we're thinking about infrastructure, we're thinking about all this kind of stuff. What's the experience, all right? Is it easy? Is it difficult? Is it frustrating? Does it take a long time? Do you have to be an expert? Do you need to have a lot of tutorials? Is there good documentation? Is there a community that can support you? These are the things that are being thought of there, right? So these are the things that we are talking about inside the community. Cool. So what technologies are you working with now? Andrew, I can't see the Twitch. So can you just tell me directly either what they're commenting on, or you can just tell me what technologies you're working with at the moment?
Totally. So we're doing a lot of stuff and have been for the last couple of years on Firebase. So using
Nice.
sort of backend as a service, like a lot of the cloud providers. Heroku as well. We do a lot of our work in JavaScript, but we've had stuff, folks working in Python.
That's great.
And just there's a lot of exploration of new APIs and technologies all the time. So we had a team that just built out a new application that's map-based, which uses not Google Maps, but a totally different system. So we're kind of all over the place, but we really focus on sort of like JavaScript frameworks that are in there, and then just really web-heavy focused. Yeah.
That's great. That's great. And also the thing, I think Firebase is super cool because like who doesn't like mobile applications? So I think it's a really attractive starting point. And also as well too, is that it's interesting. And once again, because as I said previously, is that it's not just, the SREs or people with these kind of profiles that can get wonderful salaries, like really good mobile application developers that can develop natively in both iOS and Android are highly in demand. JavaScript is like the most killer, front end web programming language to be using. And so I have lots and lots of friends that are JavaScript developers. And then Python is like the most battle tested programming language you can possibly find out there, whether it's for big data, for front, for back, for tons of different things. So it's extremely versatile and very well respected. So all of those things that you mentioned are very, very exciting. And I would love to get the link for what you mentioned about the map thing. That'd be a fun thing to share. That's great. The thing is that there's no wrong decision to make, right? And the fact that you're touching that you're working with a lot of different stuff is great. And the thing is fantastic. So like, just because you start out, doing more front end or web kind of things, you could totally stay in that. And guess what? There are tons of jobs in there as well. You could shift more to back end. You could find out that you really want to develop for virtual reality, or that you're interested in video games, or 3D design, or it doesn't matter. Like the main thing is to just, like I said, be consistently involved with this kind of stuff. And then eventually to be thinking about, personal different things that you can be developing to draw more attention to your skill set. Good. Let's keep moving. So the status of your personal brand. I understand that, that some of you are quite young. Some of you are a little bit older, but it's basically thinking about like, all right, difficult questions to ask, right? Who am I? What do I like? What do I represent? I know that when you're a teenager, you just want to be normal and be cool, and you want to be noticed, but you don't want to be noticed. So that's okay. And some of those things kind of change, and some of them don't really change when you're an adult. What does it really mean to be an adult anyway? But basically the thing is about personal branding, it doesn't mean that you need to have a YouTube channel. It doesn't mean that you need to have a blog or that you need to be on TikTok. I'm sure somebody here, I think I don't have TikTok. Andrew, do you have TikTok? No.
No, I absolutely do. I got it for High Tech U and then got super addicted to it.
Okay. So you are a full-fledged TikToker.
I am full-fledged TikTok. I'm going for TikTok fame, but I don't think we're gonna get there.
It's okay. But the thing is, that's not a problem. And actually I can talk about that a little bit further later on. Is that just because even if you do something, and this is whether it's TikTok or any personal project, right? Anything, you don't have to be top number one, whatever, right? Like that. Because the thing is, like, TikTokers and YouTubers, the vast majority aren't going to make a penny, right? Like, if you want to do that, there are certain strategies and things like that can make it more probable to monetize your content and things like that. But it doesn't mean that it can't open other doors, right? In my case, it's definitely worked to do things that weren't professionally successful, all right, or maybe didn't even have an intention of being professionally successful. But when you go and have a conversation with somebody, you're like, oh, and you had a YouTube channel, and and you put out 50 videos and you do this and that. It shows that you're consistent. It shows that you're disciplined. It shows that you're not afraid of challenges. It shows that you're not afraid of feedback and putting yourself out there. At the same time, I'm not saying that everyone needs to become a TikToker, a blogger, a streamer, things like that. But what I want to say is that, like, there's got to be something apart from just being in university that can help you stand out. All right. Once again, from a talent perspective, I get 4 resumes. All right. And I look at each one, and then I see like, oh, You created an application for an NGO in Uganda when you were 16 years old. Maybe I don't care that you don't have as much professional experience, because if you took the time to create the necessary ingredients to create that application, as you're mentioning, the necessary ingredients to create that application that's similar to Google Maps shows a lot about a person's character, right? So those things are extremely, extremely positive, and don't downplay their importance, right? That's what I would say is like, it's very, very important to keep that in mind. So the status of your personal brand is basically, what am I good at? It's also really important to be honest and direct with yourself about the things you're not good at, right? I can give you a we don't have enough time to talk about all the things I'm not good at. And I would have to bring my wife that you just saw walk in the background so that she could tell you all the other things as well. What I want to say is that like this, it's just something to be conscious of. It's going to evolve, right? But your personal brand is we can say it's a sort of summary of who you are, where you're from, your family, your background, all that kind of stuff, the things that you've studied, the places that you've visited. There are many, many factors that are going to go into your friendships. All those things are going to they make you the unique individual that you are, all right? Like I said, this is going to evolve. If you're 16, your personal brand when you're 16 isn't necessarily going to be the same as when you're 26. One second. Mike, can you shut the door, please? Mike. Cool. So yeah, like I said, those are the music that you listen to, all those different things form part of who you are, your values, your interests, your passions, your hobbies, etc. It's just something to keep in mind, right? Like as you continue to develop, it doesn't mean that you need to know right now that when I'm 40, I'm going to be doing this. Probably going to change, right? Life is what happens when you're busy making other plans, as John Lennon once said. But this is important, right? And so inside the technology world, you could also be thinking about this. The very fact of those programming languages that Andrew was mentioning about JavaScript, Python, etc. We've worked with Firebase, we've done that. It makes it easier for you to, on paper, get some distance to be like, all right, I like this, or I worked on this. What are the things that I've learned? What are the things that have been difficult? What does that say about me? Maybe it says that I'm a person who's more attracted to working on these kind of things, or more attracted to working on those kind of things, or I'm interested in managing people, or I'm not interested in managing people. Just be honest with yourselves about those things to have a more realistic vision of where it is that you are and where it is that you want to be going. All right. So like I said, the status of the personal brand thing is important. Now, related to that and thinking about branding, all right, so how to become a high-level tech professional. And so like I'm not just saying in the Kubernetes space, right? I'm not just saying in the world in which, I'm sort of operating. But what I would say is that this list, right, is a brief summary, not the only one, right? And so let's kind of unpack these different elements, right? So be patient. You may, and that's also why it's a little bit, I don't want it to be misleading saying, you're going to make 190,000 Canadian dollars a year when you're 20. All right. Probably not. Could happen. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm sure there are people that are doing that. But I want to say is that, Rome wasn't built in a day. Like it's this, enjoy the process, right? Like don't put too much pressure on yourself to be, the CEO of something when you're 23 years old. If you want to do that, go for it. All right. And I'm definitely not going to stop you. And if there's any way I can help you, you can just contact me on LinkedIn, Twitter, whatever you want. But be patient, all right? Be kind to yourselves in the process, all right? And also realize that, maybe some technologies are going to be difficult to learn, and maybe some take more time than other. Or maybe you have a certain way of thinking that identifies and works better with certain technologies than with others, right? So those are factors that you're going to want to keep in mind there. Be active, or I should say active, be proactive, all right? Interact with people, interact with sources, create habits. Find podcasts. You have a million different podcasts. And also you don't have to listen to podcasts that are an hour long. I listen to all the Kubernetes podcasts from Google, right? And I listen to them when I go running, right? So obviously I'm running and I'm thinking about other things, but I am getting information in there. And also they read news. So you hear about companies, or you hear about this speaker or this person or this technology and things like that. Those things are extremely useful. They're also podcasts that are 10 minutes long, that are 20 minutes long, that are 5 minutes long, right? That just go more directly to a specific thing. So that's something to keep in mind as well. But seriously, be proactive, attend events, go to conferences, give talks, all right? Or create documentation, or write a blog post, or share content in Twitter. I cannot tell you, Twitter, if you want to be in technology for the rest of your lives, or at any point in your life, Twitter is the place to be, all right? Like all the action, I don't want to say all the action, a lot of action is going on Twitter, right? And what do you have to do that? It's pretty simple. You don't need to be tweeting every 5 seconds. You can retweet what other people post. You can write a comment saying, hey, thanks for sharing, or I really liked it, or ask somebody a question, you have nothing to lose, right? You have nothing to fear, right? So when I say be proactive, do that kind of stuff. A basic content strategy to make yourself more visible of like, all right, I like reading these articles. It can be as simple as this. If you're interested in JavaScript or you want to learn about this new framework, check out this video from so-and-so. I really liked it. That's all you got to do, right? You tag the person who created the video. They're going to like you because you shared their content. These kinds of things are really just get in. If you can get into the habit of doing those things, if you want it to be more structured, you can use tools like Hootsuite, all right, to program social media posts. But like I said, be proactive, right? I'm not saying you just spend 5 hours a day reading books. A lot of developers read books, right? Like O'Reilly sells a lot of books, right? There are tons of different books out there, things that are coming up all the time. Depending on how you like to learn, you might want to use one style or another. But the point is, interact with this kind of stuff, right? Make this like a regular habit. Like I said, number 3, ask questions, right? One of the best ways to make yourself visible, and so that people, like I said, is that experts want to be asked questions. They want people to come to them and ask them for advice. Experts will also appreciate for someone to say like, hey, would you be my mentor? That's a really, really big thing in tech as well too, mentoring, right? Really, I work with extremely high level people that are working with people your age doing mentorships, right? So that's always an option as well too. But like I said, asking questions. When I say learning, all right, learning in many senses. You can learn, hard skills that are more technical, and then also learning soft skills, right? It's extremely important in any company, not just to know how to speak, right? Giving a presentation. Some people are terrified of giving presentations. The only way to really get better is to do them, but at a scale that's more comfortable for you. Don't give an hour-long talk if you haven't given a 5-minute talk first, right? And if you're going to give a 5-minute talk, make sure you practice it at least 5 times, right, with someone who can give you feedback, so you know how it sounds. Like I said, learning how to speak is one thing. Learning how to listen is almost as difficult, if not more difficult, and less frequently taught than learning how to give presentations, right? Being a good listener is a huge, huge skill, all right, to have. So that's another thing. And also, once again, going back to number 1, being patient. Like in any company, in any environment, we always want things to go faster than they're going to be able to go. Being a good team player, right? A lot of what goes down in what happens in software companies or tech companies is teamwork, right? You're going to have to be working with other people who may not have the same personality as you, right? It's kind of true in tech or in any other sector, really. Like I said, that's going to be important there too. Sharing, right? Sharing is caring, meaning I would generally say the idea of I'm going to keep this all for me, at least in the Cloud Native Computing Foundation or the environments where I work, is something that's not really well seen. It's kind of frowned upon. And so the more that you give, the more you get, right? It's really, really important to do that. And so that when you're older or when you're in university, that you can come back to High Tech U and do some, and, reconnect with Andrew and help out some other folks that are trying to get started in this path, thinking about what were the things that were difficult for me at that stage in my life, and how can I make it easier for other people that are going through the same thing. So like I said, sharing is very, very important. And that directly relates to number 6, which is pay it forward. Philosophy that we have in the CNCF, not thinking about pay it back, meaning like, I'm going to do you a favor and I'm not expecting anything in return, right? Of course, if someone's completely taking advantage of you by just getting you to do a lot of free stuff for them, then don't do that, right? But generally look for opportunities where you can help other people. That's what it's more about, right? So once again, folks that are younger, right? Or maybe that are older, or helping your parents or your grandparents that are struggling with their phones or emails or whatever, things like that. There are tons of different ways to help people out, but it's something that particularly in the open source world, in any other world, really, I don't want to speak badly about the closed source companies or things like that, but definitely in the open source world, being welcoming, being supportive, looking for opportunities to help folks out is extremely beneficial in many, many ways. And with number 7 as well, tech is people, right? Like if I could say anything about our community, as much as we're talking about technological problems, we're constantly talking about people problems, right? About disagreements, about pride, about legacy code is something you'll hear about a lot. Like, something that was developed a long time ago, and then either the person who developed it doesn't want to change it, or that it's just been kind of laying around. A lot of times as well too, is that, for example, the adoption of Kubernetes or some advanced technologies, there are companies that are being run and managed by people who are in their 60s and 70s who don't want to change because they don't want to have to start driving in a new direction, and they're just thinking about retirement. Those kind of human blockers or factors can be very, very influential in a lot of these situations. So it's really, really important that as much as we talk about technology, there's always going to be a human element, right? Emotions go into this, right? People have good days and bad days. You'll also see this on Twitter because people really like to tell people when they've had a bad day. And also when they've had a good day. Those seems to be like the two polar opposite, but like most attractive things that you can talk about is either that you're having a really hard time or that things are going really, really well. But anyway, like I said, tech is very, very much about people. So don't just, and very frequently I would say that a lot of the people that are really, I would say it's not the only way to be successful, but it's being able to find that balance between the human side and the tech side. But you'll see that as you get out there, all right? There are people that are just very interested in selling themselves or selling a product, but there are a lot of other people that really genuinely care, that want people to learn, and that are just fantastic. And that's, for me, one of the main reasons why I'm so excited to be working with the CNCF is that virtually everybody that I've been working with has been extremely supportive and very welcoming and doesn't judge me or criticize me for the fact that I don't have a technical background, but said, no, we think that's great because it provides diversity. So those things are really, really strong in that sense too. Good. So sorry, I didn't want to jump ahead. So can you get involved in CNCF or open source projects, right? Because like I said, the CNCF is not the only place, right, where open source projects can be found. There are other foundations, other institutes that make these things available. The answer is absolutely yes, right? Like I said, I just did this meetup with Katie Gamaji, who's an amazing technical person, who's the ecosystem advocate for the CNCF, and she is very committed to this. I'm personally making storytelling videos for young people who are 18, 19, 20 years old, who are already contributing to Kubernetes, and will be featured next week in the KubeCon event, which is a massive international event that will be online. But you absolutely can get involved. And all you have to say right up front is to say, to be totally honest, I don't, this is where my level is. I'm not sure what I should be working on. Someone will help you. All right. All you have to do is go to the CNCF website, enter in the CNCF Slack, introduce yourself, say, hi, my name is so-and-so. I'm from British Columbia. I'm working on these projects in High Tech U. I'd like to find out more. Could somebody give me a hand? Someone will come and help guide you. All right. And particularly if you say like, I'm a younger person, I'm just getting started, things like that. It's just a question from there is to figure out which project will be best aligned for you based on your interest, right? JavaScript, tons of stuff you can do. Python, tons of stuff you can do. Firebase, same thing. Like, it's just a question of bouncing ideas off of different folks and saying like, hey, like, based on my skill set, where do you think I would be, what's the best match? But no one is going to give you a hard time. If somebody gives you if you go to the CNCF and somebody gives you a hard time, it makes it difficult. You find me immediately and I will have to deal with that. All right. It won't be pleasant, but I say that because I highly doubt that it would happen. Right. But you absolutely can get involved in these kind of things. And like I said, if it's not the CNCF, if it's some other kind of community, if you find a JavaScript group online of people that are just talking about JavaScript, that's great. Do that. All right. I'm not going to be like, of course, I want as many people to come to the CNCF as possible, to spread the cloud native mindset, which is basically cloud native mean obviously starting out in the cloud, but also avoiding what we call vendor lock-in, right? And creating situations where technologies aren't strictly tied just to one company, but rather can be more flexible, which is why we hear about things now like hybrid cloud or multi-cloud, that I don't have to have all of my stuff in Amazon's cloud, in AWS, or I don't have to have all of it in IBM cloud or Alibaba cloud or Google cloud, or, anyway, so like the list goes on. There are lots of clouds. So the idea of cloud native technologies is sort of break out of this and give users more freedom in the ability to pick and choose who they want to be working with, right? But like I said, you absolutely can, but whether it's that or some other project, just get involved in something. And if you don't want to be the leader, you don't have to, right? You can just be a participant, right? If you're nice and if you say like, honestly, I just want to attend a couple meetings just to listen, no one's going to bother you. All right. Eventually what happens, they'll say like, hey, we need somebody to do this. And to do this could be as simple as refactoring a bit of code or cleaning up a website or doing it. Like there can be jobs that are big and small. All right. So there really is something for everybody. And there are lots and lots of different ways to get involved. So I'm just saying, be open-minded about that. But I really, really encourage you to do that. Good. So yeah, final message. Be visible, be heard, and have fun, right? Be visible in the sense of Get a repository on GitHub. That's something else that I didn't mention, right? Share your projects, right? Show people what you're working on and say like, hey, could you maybe give me your opinion about this or what you think about that? Or can you try it out? Or I'd like to work with you on this. Like I said, don't be afraid. In my experience, particularly as a non-technical person, people have been extremely welcoming. So I really want folks to have similar experiences. Like I said, being heard, same thing. Share your stories, right? Show your stuff. Record a 5-minute video as a demo that can just be a screenshot showing how you built something. All right. These things are really, really important because it'll improve your confidence. It gives you something to show because you'll see with a lot of companies, like, of course, a lot of companies want to see folks that have, university studies and, that have gone to the best universities. But there are also other factors in job processes of doing code tests or saying like, can we look at your GitHub repo? It depends on the company. All right. I'm not saying every company has the same strategy, but these things are frequently implemented. All right. Places that we're going to go as our recruiter side or human resources talent management side. We're going to look at your LinkedIn. We're going to look at your Twitter. We're going to look at, particularly in the tech world, right? Not in the sense of spying on somebody, but just seeing like, oh, like what is this, this person, who do they tend to interact with? What's the stuff that they're doing? And then the other thing, like I said, have fun. The more that you can combine having fun with what you're working on, the more enjoyable it's going to be. All right. And it's not going to feel so much like work, but it's just going to feel like an extension of yourself in terms of your passions and your personal brand, as I said earlier. So if you can find things of like, oh, I'm really into, clothes. So how can I combine clothes and technology? Well, there are about a billion ways you can do that. I'm sure a lot of you play video games. Video games is a frequent starting point for a lot of folks that get into tech as well too. There are tons and tons and tons of different ways, or looking at the applications that you have in your phone, all that kind of stuff, right? But like I said, there's no wrong way to go. The main thing is the only wrong way to go is to not try, right? So just try inside your, we can say either go outside your comfort zone or expand your comfort zone. Continue in groups like High Tech U, continue to be in contact with super cool, energetic, amazing people like Andrew, who I really hope I get to work with more in the future. This is the kind of, if you do that kind of stuff, it doesn't matter if it, like I said, if it's Python, if it's JavaScript, if it's with this, if it's with that, you're going to be totally fine. So that being said, that's all that I had. And it looks like we finished on time, sort of. So Andrew, anything else you need from me?
No, I'm going to pull you over here because I know it's like 9:30 for you now. I'm going to pull you over there. No, that was spectacular. And what I love about this speaks to the value of community in the tech sector. I mean, we met like a month ago through a colleague, a mutual person that we both done work with. And here we are collaborating, presenting, and being able to share the DoK community, which I had no idea about. And just this idea of open source. And I mean, if there's one thing that I think people can take away from all of the spectacular stuff that you just shared out with the community, is that this is a thing. This is a global community of people that want to help, and everybody's just looking for ways to engage. So, yeah, Bart,
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. This has been an absolutely fantastic stream. Yeah. So, and we got one of our regulars that just dropped in, who just said, yo, so, Sixers fan, glad to see you drop by. If you missed the stream, if you're here, don't worry, because you'll be able to catch it on the High Tech U YouTube channel, which I'm putting in the chat right now. And if you're interested in getting in touch with Bart or, getting, into the DoK community, it's pretty easy, DoK Community, and you can get access to that community. I'll share that also in the description in the chat. And otherwise, Bart, thanks so much for a great presentation. I know our community is really excited to get engaged. So enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you again very soon, I hope.
My pleasure. Yeah, like as you said, anybody who wants to either know more about our community or just wants to get some more feedback or ideas about things that they want to get involved in, please contact me. I'd be happy to talk to anybody anytime. But seriously, it's so nice. I really I would pay to do this. So anyway, it's really nice to be with young people that are energetically going after this stuff. Keep doing what you're doing, and thank you very much, Andrew. I got to get your address to send you some t-shirts.
Awesome. So, yeah. All right, we'll see you later. Thanks so much, Bart. And for all of our viewers, we'll see you next time here on the High Tech U Twitch channel. Bye.